Welcome back to our Walk on Water study. We're in week 9 and our theme is focus. And so out of all the chapters in this book, this is the one that resonates the most with me. So let's open up our books and dive in. So we're starting with our anchor verse on page 113, and it is, "But when he," Peter, "saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.'" And that verse is Matthew 14:30. So day 1, we're going to be diving into that story of Peter when he took his focus off of Jesus into his circumstances around him, and he went down fast. And how often we get distracted. And so a challenge is, what are you facing right now where you need to focus on Jesus instead of, and his power instead of the circumstances? So that is our challenge for day 1. And what a great example with Peter. Day 2, a story near and dear to my heart with Mary and Martha. Yes, I am Martha. I kick into Martha mode a lot, but Jesus redirected Martha's focus, and he said, "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." And so Martha was very busy. She was a doer, and she needed to just stop and be in the presence of Jesus, like her sister Mary. And so what daily distractions and all this minutia and all these tasks distract us from focusing and spending time with Jesus? It's a good question in our very busy world. And then how can we refocus? As Jesus refocused Martha, how can we refocus knowing this story and how will this story impact our lives on day 2? Day 3, we're moving right along to Ruth, the story of Ruth and Naomi. Love the story of Ruth. I encourage you to do the dig deeper on page 119 and just read the whole story. And it's just a great story of a selfless widow named Ruth. And we see in Ruth 1:16 through 17, she does not want to leave her mother-in-law. "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." So that is Ruth talking to Naomi, and it was a big decision because she was leaving her country to go to a foreign country. She was a Moabite. And so it is incredible what God does with her story and her selfless acts of kindness. So when we have trials, as Ruth did, she lost her husband. Her mother-in-law Naomi had lost her husband, so they were destitute. But when we have trials, do we focus on our circumstances or do we focus on someone to serve, just like Ruth did with her mother-in-law Naomi? So that's a good question. Day 4, John the Baptist. So I love the story about John because he was very clear. He knew who he was and who he wasn't. And we see this right away in John 1:19 through 20 when he says, "I am not the Messiah's." Because they thought because he was baptizing people that he was, and he did not take credit. He did not draw attention to himself. He always pointed to Jesus. And so our challenge is, does our life point people to Jesus, or are we more interested in attracting attention to ourselves? So that is day 4, and we finish up strong on day 5. And this is a story about David, and it's kind of one of these, beware of where your focus is, and temptation is always around. And we have David on the rooftop, and he sees Bathsheba, and that one glance changed the trajectory of his story, ended up in an illegitimate child, and really a path of destruction for David. And David was a man after God's own heart. And so even great men, people like David, make epic mistakes. And we see this story in 2 Samuel 11, 1 through chapter 12, 31. So it goes through, and I encourage you to read it on page 123 as to dig deeper. But we see just how David got distracted by temptation and how he needed to flee and refocus. And sometimes we need to do the same. So what is it that we need to flee from? Because we're tempted and we don't want our focus hijacked from God's best for our lives. And so where do we need to flee and refocus on the Lord? And so then on our final day, day 6, we always like to stop to reflect and to let the stories resonate from the week. And then the challenge is to take a step. What is it from these lessons on focus that will help you take one step closer to the Lord? And it's really thinking about, where is your focus today? And so I hope this week on focus helps you to focus more on your relationship with the Lord. And so next week, next lesson is rescue. So in the story, Peter goes down, Lord, save me. And of course, Jesus is right there with his hand to rescue Peter. So tune in for our next lesson on rescue. Have a great week. Bye-bye.